Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host for tonight. I'm the Director of Programs for NAMI North Carolina. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness of North Carolina, and I'm glad you're here. Thursdays with NAMI is all about building community and building conversations around mental health. This first week of August, we are exploring that annual ritual, back to school. This year is defined by the uncertainty caused by COVID-19, along with all the other things that parents may find challenging. How is all of this hitting families with kids with mental illness? Tonight, we have two talented program leaders who are going to be sharing their experience and their skills with us on this topic. Both are teachers of NAMI Basics. That is a 6-session class for parents and caregivers who are taking care of youth up to age 22 who have mental health challenges or show symptoms of mental health conditions. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview with our two guests, Lucy Cifre and Amy Robertson. About halfway through, we'll show a video of the week, and then we'll spend time taking your questions. Now, first, a word from our sponsors, and I'm going to show you a beautiful logo to admire while I express our gratitude to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services. Our funding comes from them as part of the Community Mental Health Services Block Grant, and we truly appreciate their guidance and support. Alrighty. Moving right along, Thursdays with NAMI is recorded, so if you have friends who could not join us tonight, please let them know it is never too late. NAMI believes in second chances, and we will have this recording online within a week or so. Now, without further ado, let me introduce my honored guests. Lucy Cifre is a parent coordinator at East Elementary School in Union County. She was trained as a NAMI Basics teacher last year and has since taught the class in Spanish. That was the first basics class for Spanish offered in the state. Amy Robertson is the CEO and founder of Soul Advantage, LLC, where she provides executive HR services for growing companies. She also coordinates the whole basics program for NAMI in Wake County. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, so first of all, tell me how y'all are taking care of yourselves and how you're coping with these interesting times we live in.
Well, I guess I'll start. Gosh, I love being outdoors, so that's one of my non-negotiables. So I try to take a walk outside. Some days it's 5 minutes, and other days it could be an hour. But that's really how I'm taking care of myself.
Like Amy, the same thing. I love walking. So I take daily walks, 30, 45 minutes. I love doing yoga and meditating, just being in touch with myself. And that's how I am coping.
Yeah, well, I do both of those things too. I love being outdoors. I love yoga. I always tell myself I should do more of it, but it's just such an energizing, clear feeling when you've done a little yoga.
Right.
So I know as far as the basics class, one of people's favorite things is that class 3 time where people share their stories. To the extent that you both are comfortable, could you share your stories with us tonight? In whatever order you choose.
I start. Well, I decided to take basic training because of my daughters. I have 2 daughters. One is 21 years old, and she have bipolar disorder. At the beginning, it was very confusing. I didn't know what was going on. And after she was had to drop out of college on her 3rd year, and then she was diagnosed. Then later on, I have a 20-year-old who tried to commit suicide twice. She was in a hospital for a month for depression, but she don't want to take any medicine, or she's not managing. So as a mom, I felt alone. I felt like I didn't know where to go and get the support that I needed to support my kids. So when I heard about NAMI, it was such a relief. It was like I'm not alone. And so it was a blessing that I was introduced to Basic to Basic. And I loved it. And then I wanted to help those parents that didn't get the help that I got. And I was stuck. I was in a dark place. Depression also, because you tend to blame yourself for things that happen to your kids because you're their protector. Why this is happening. But mental illness does not recognize good parent or bad parent. It's just something that happens. And so it took a little bit for me to understand that. And I wanted to help all the parents that were going through the same thing and like me couldn't get any help or didn't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very thankful for the program.
Yeah.
Like Amy said, it's very rewarding when you're helping these parents that like me was lost once upon a time and they can see the light as well. It's like such a feeling of reward.
Mm. Right. Well, I appreciate that. And I can see all your lovely family images behind you. So that really reinforces your statements. I'm
I'm
glad.
a picture taker.
Yeah, that's neat. Amy?
Okay. Okay. I have two children, and they're actually official adults now. I have a son who's 21, but we'll focus on my daughter. She recently turned 18 earlier this spring, and when she was in, I would just say as a child and a young adolescent, she was number top in school, leader. You know, the kids followed her. She was, you know, did every extracurricular sport you could think of, or activity, and really, you know, had this sparkle in her eyes and always seemed to be just a delight. And I remember being at work in the fall of her seventh grade year, getting a call from her school counselor. And she said, I need you and your husband to come to school right now. AV is in my office, and sorry I used her name, but I don't think she would mind. Is in my office, and she's been harming herself, and we need you to come take care. And so it was really out of left field because what we realized was this little girl was really good at hiding her feelings and putting on a show because she felt like there were some expectations in school, church, community, home that she should live up to. And what we found out when she was 12 was she was self-harming. So she was cutting. She was had generalized anxiety disorder was the diagnosis, along with major depressive disorder. Um, OCD turned up, and suicidal ideation. So really, that was such a shock for us because we had never dealt with that directly in our family. And here was our daughter. We didn't know what to do. I will say that I was not aware of NAMI during the crisis, right? All those nights we slept on her floor to make sure she didn't harm herself or kill herself. Um, we were lucky. We had the resources to find caretakers and physicians and therapists to help. And it was a really long journey. But on the positive side, and of course, I could go on and on about what I've seen and learned. But when I came out and moved into advocacy and felt like I was strong enough to help others, I felt like, wow, I wish I had really been involved and had more knowledge of NAMI when my husband and I were going through the thick of it.
Mm.
So I would say that that's the reason for my participation in NAMI, is to honor my daughter and her remission and her recovery. And I'm happy to say that she is we just dropped her off at her dorm last weekend for her freshman year in college. And I have to say, I feel like she's got the tools in her toolbox. She's on medication as well, but we tried to leave no stone unturned with her her care plan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, thank you both for trusting us all enough to share your story and doing so much to give back to your communities. I can't imagine a tougher feeling than discovering that your child has hurt herself or wanted to hurt herself or end her life. And now both of you are teaching basics, this class that teaches parents about that ripple effect of mental illness, what are some of the tools to cope yourself, and what are some of the tools to de-escalate situations with your kids. So that you've been teaching people many things out of that basics class. Which for you two are the tools or the skills that seem most valuable that you still use today?
well, I can say class 4, hands down, the communication tools.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about I statements and reflective responses, and really being able to reflect the feelings of the person speaking to you. And that helps develop trust and empathy. And I would just say in general, I don't think we as a society in general practice enough listening. So if we could spend more time on how to better communicate with one another, I think will help us in so many topics, not just dealing with being a parent of a child with mental illness.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Class 4 was my favorite.
Yeah.
It's so true. Communication, listening. We hardly listen to what others have to say. We're very quick to talk and say things that are in our mind, but we don't stop and listen to the needs of those close to us. So I would say also communication.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And it's amazing how you learn these skills, reflective listening and validation. Most of us, we just grow up without thinking that much consciously about the way we communicate. And it's so easy to feel defensive or put someone on the defensive. And these skills are very simple, but they go a long way.
And they're so hard. I mean, it's a habit you have to form. And
right.
I don't get it right. And I try to do it, and I still need practice. I don't care how good you are. You still have to practice for those things.
It's an everyday thing. Correct.
Well, I had a music teacher who used to say practice makes permanent. That's what comes to mind with the, it's true for communication as well. So as you've taught people in your basic classes, we'll start with Lucy this time. Did you have a success story or a moment that really stood with you that made you feel like this is going the way it should?
Yes, definitely I did. I have one of the moms, I was teaching in school. So some of these parents, or most of the parents that participated, they have children in the school. And so she was having problems with one of the girls. She was in 3rd grade. And her response to that, she was raising her child like they raised her. So she used to spank her and not listening to what the child had to say, overreacting for things that didn't look normal to her. So I offered the class to her, and she started coming. At the 4th class, like Amy said, she broke down and she started crying. And so we both, I suggested I was going to help her if she didn't speak the language. So I helped her to look for help. And so she started going to a therapist, and the school she started getting evaluated as well. And everything looked so much different from there on. Mom was understanding how to use those tools. She was being more patient, and it was a totally transformation when she finished that class. So it was, I was very excited for both of them.
Hmm.
I was able to utilize the help that she needed. In the Hispanic community, sometimes it's like a taboo to say that you have a mental illness, because they will call you crazy instead of, just looking for the help that that person needed at that moment. But it was very exciting for the three of us. The child got the help she needed, and mom was understanding what was going on.
Hmm. Well, that's pretty powerful. That's a big difference for a lot of lives, really.
Definitely. It's like an eye opening, when you understand what's going on with your child.
Hmm. Thank you. I see some questions in the chat box. Please feel free to type those questions in the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen, icons Q&A with the bubbles, and then we'll get to those for the second part of our show. I'll try to keep checking the chat box, but it's much easier to get your question addressed if you type it in Q&A. I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Okay, I love what Lucy said about an aha moment, right? When all of a sudden there's this ding dong that something clicked, right? And you can see it. I would say that one of the times when it felt so impactful was I was teaching a class, and I had a husband and wife participate. And it was clear at that time their family was going through significant crisis. And every mental illness, mental health discussions was all new to them. They took the class successfully. They were there every week. Then they wound up in my class about 9 to 12 months later. So they took another class that we were teaching, and it just so happened I was the instructor, and I saw them on my roster, and they came to the class, and it was amazing. They were just the amount of crisis that they had attacked head on, and the amount of growth that their family had experienced. So they came back because they said, we were going through such stress during the first go round. Now that we're in a better place, we really want to absorb the material. And so, at first it was more like a support, like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And then the second class was, okay, I'm getting grounded, and now I can help others. And so what wound up happening is they wound up being such a great resource for the other families in the class. And it just was super cool to watch. And they're on my list. I want them to take basics training so they can take and teach their own classes.
That's great. Absolutely. That makes sense to me, because the first time you attend a NAMI program, you're in distress, your adrenaline is pumping. It's hard to absorb much. It's hard to really sit down and focus when you're in that state. So you go for the support, and when your nervous system and your mind and your life all calm down, then give it another round and yeah, let it all sink in. Absolutely. Okay. So COVID-19 has radically altered the landscape for schools, and there's so much uncertainty. When children have classes online, parents need to adjust their schedules too. They need to be there to guide the child. It's not quite the same as homeschooling, but it's not that far either. What advice do you have for parents as they prepare for this new school year?
I would say, this is the new norm, so we have to get prepared. I know schools are offering online orientation because it is new to a lot of parents how to navigate the system. That in our county, we opt for Plan B, which is 1 day face-to-face and 4 days remote. And a lot of the parents don't know how to navigate, how they're going to do it. So I would say let's educate ourselves I will organize just an area for your students so they don't get distracted. Set up a learning space and make sure that they have a schedule, that it will be kind of the same schedule as is they going to school. You start, well, here we start at 7:20 to 2. Try to keep the same schedule consistency. Um, Also make sure the computer is working properly because they're going to need it every day, especially the days they don't come to school. They're going to still have remote learning. I know that public schools here are offering laptops from 2nd grade to 12th grade. And then in October, they're going to consider kindergarten to 1st grade. Um, Again, the school, they have those available for the student. Also review the lesson plan with your child and submit the assignments. Just because we're home, they're still going to count. Those assignments are going to count. Attendance is still going to count. I mean, we're home, but we still need to log into that computer and do the work. So that's my suggestion.
Structure, a lot of good structure.
Right.
That's
Amy?
awesome, Lucy. I love that. I love, because I think what you gave us were some really practical things to do. Very, very good. I came at this from a zooming out perspective, so it sounds like we complement one another, Lucy. So the first thing I thought about was, gosh, even though this is our new norm, it's likely going to be, it's not going to be forever.
Correct.
So it might feel like it, but I think we're all going to figure this out. So the first thing I would say is, don't be negative around your child about the situation. I think one gift a parent can give to their kids is the gift of optimism, because they're going to see so many other things in their world. And if you can just remember to stay optimistic in front of the children about the situation, I think that will help. I also think that we're very impatient these days, and we're not extending grace to others and to ourselves, right? So, because things are not going to turn out as expected. This is one big petri dish. Literally, we're experimenting. So, don't be hard on others. Don't go on a rant on Facebook. Extend a little bit of grace, and especially don't be hard on yourself. We're all going to trip and stumble, and that's okay. Just declare upset and move on, right? And then the last thing I would say is, this is just a big, it's a big gnarly problem to solve. And so there's a great leadership coach from long ago, but not that long ago, Stephen Covey. And one of the things he always said is, put first things first. So we're all going to feel overwhelmed. Your kid might feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel overwhelmed because you're juggling these work and home and whatever, and everything else that goes with it. So first things first just really means just focus on the things that matter, and the rest will figure itself out. And just chunk it out bit by bit, and just don't be distracted by things that aren't important to your health and happiness.
Mm-hmm. I like that. We got the 10,000 feet and we got the brass tacks. So I think we've covered it all in a very helpful way. If you're not having a moment to look at the chat box, you're getting lots of nice comments about your encouraging and inspiring words. So just letting you know that. Thoughts about how much you must have helped the couple, and Lucy, how much you would have helped the people that you mentioned, the woman who was in the class and who you worked with and brought along. So kudos to you so far. And as regarding children in school, if there's a language barrier, some kids go to school and they're bilingual, some kids are Spanish speakers and have a hard time. And maybe the digital divide will make it harder for them to catch up. Any thoughts about that, Lucy?
We're still continuing with our dual language program. It's offered to kindergarten to second grade. And so we're still going to continue. I'm not still sure how it's going to look. I think it's going to be 50-50 since students just come into school that one day, but they're still going to take remote 4 days. But we're still going to continue supporting those students, ESL students. Definitely, we will support them.
Well,
And
that's great.
if you have any questions, make sure you contact your teacher, because every school should be still supporting the dual language students.
Very good. So we know Union County is in good hands and people know where to reach out if they need that support. So we know that some studies show children with mental health challenges are more likely to be bullied. What's the best way to support a child who's being picked on by other kids?
Well, I go back to a couple of things we learned from class 4. So I'll just apply what we teach in basics, okay? Really, if you're not already having proactive dialogue with your children at an early age, now's the time to start, for sure. And practicing reflective listening so that they feel comfortable sharing more things with you, because they're going to want to share with you some tough things, and mama bear is going to get really defensive, and I might overreact. And so our job, I think, in this role is to be their strength, their support, try not to overreact, and listen and reflect their feelings back. And then practice another technique, which is proactive and collaborative solutions by Dr. Ross Green. And that's one of the other techniques. And really what it's about is, you know, expressing empathy, defining the problem, and inviting collaboration. So really you're helping your child solution together. Now, there's going to be some time when you're going to have to draw the line, and you're going to have to go to administrators or the other parent or whatever. But when you model these behaviors for your child, they learn critical thinking skills, and then they learn how to attack these things later. And my mother, when I brought my son home from the hospital for the first time, the words of wisdom she gave me long ago was that today is the most dependent on you that he should ever be. Your job is to love him and encourage him to be independent. And so I think when it comes to any type of problem to solve or opportunity, trying to figure it out together and showing the steps to get there is really important, whether it's bullying or anything else.
I would say take it seriously. Sometimes we might not be taking serious what a child is trying to say. Maybe they're just making this up, so take it seriously. It's very important to validate what they're saying to us, and also praise your child for doing the right thing and saying it to you, because it takes a lot for a child to come to you as an adult or as a mom and dad and said they're bullying them. And so emphasize to them that bullying behavior is wrong, and that it's no good to respond with bullying other kids as well. Sometimes they bully and bully back, so that's not a good approach. It can quickly escalate into violence. And then listen calmly to your child. Just listen and offer comfort and support, and let them know that they're not alone. And just take it as far as you need to take it. It is very important to let them know that you hear them. They are valuable to you, and you hear everything they say, and don't just put it on the side. Just listen to them calmly.
Absolutely. I think if I'm in a situation where I want to seek counsel, I'm going to call both of you because I love those answers. I really love your comment about remaining calm. And it reminds me of my experience as a child with a mother who had anxiety. And if I would bring a problem to her, you know, she would just get very upset, and then I would be calming her down. So I quit bringing things to her. So I think, yeah, keeping the door open and letting them know they can come to you, and remembering that their energy will affect your energy and vice versa. So
Easier said than done, though.
Right, right.
absolutely. So we know that schools are required to offer some level of accommodation to students with mental health needs. What does that look like today?
In our school, those students are welcome to come every day. So even though they would choose Plan B or Plan D, they are welcome to come the 5 days a week. The teachers are working directly with the parents of those students, so they are being offered the support they need.
Okay. Amy?
Okay, so I contacted a couple of friends of mine to get some info along with the parents that are and have been in some of my classes. And so here's one of the things that I've been learning. So in the spring, when there was this emergency stay at home action for teaching and schooling, not much was done because they were scrambling. And so parents don't hold that against the school, and we were all scrambling, right? But what I've learned is since, you know, the planning has begun and plans are starting to get in place for how to be effective in teaching for this fall, there's much more focus and effort on what are we going to do here? How are we going to do it? Lots more guidance for teachers and educators, which is wonderful. So I would say parents need to be, you know, parents are already, if you have a child with an IEP, you need to be proactive. Well, now you need to be even more proactive with your child's IEP, because if your child is at home learning, you're going to have to be the e-helper, right? So the parent or caregiver is going to have to facilitate that. And if the IEP is not able to be followed, then, you know, they'll have to make some amendments or hold off on a few things. And I would say that solutions will have to be super creative and take into consideration that learning environment that's outside of the classroom. And then the goals that have been set and are being assessed with students with IEPs, you know, they need to determine, and that's what they're determining now, is like, can the current goals be met virtually? And they focus on the ones that can, or on creative solutions that they can transform into place, right? And then, you know, just, but I would say that the school system is taking this very seriously, and parents of children with IEPs are as well. So I think it's going to be a great partnership, just tweaked.
Mm-hmm. Right, which describes a lot of what we're doing right now. It's what we did before with a different application, a different use of technology. And of course, IEP, for our virtual studio audience members who haven't been dealing with that, is an individual education program, I believe, IEP. So, all right, well, thank you for those words of wisdom. And our next question, a little more general question. Clearly, this is a scary time for a lot of people. We would never minimize that. From your perspective, are there any silver linings?
I would say that the silver lining I've seen, especially, you know, because I work with parents and I also work with employers with human resources, is an increased focus on mental health. It's just wonderful to finally see that we're starting to catch up in the way that we're viewing the world of mental health.
I agree with you. We're breaking the stigma finally.
I also think you've seen some superpowers emerge. So think about it. Like, I learned that my daughter was an amazing pantry organizer, and so like being more available to do home or quiet projects is the quiet introvert might be excelling in a way that they've not in the past. More time to be a little bit more reflective as well.
Mm-hmm.
Spend more time with family.
Mm-hmm. It does seem that people have time and we're doing things differently, maybe structuring our timing at home a little bit more, getting back to the basics. As it's interesting you use the word superpower, Amy. I talk about NAMI and my NAMI family in that way, that I say I work with people who have been through the ringer and usually emerge with superpowers like empathy or compassion or wisdom. So yeah, those might be some of the superpowers that we get out of the COVID-19 era as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there a book or a movie about children's mental health that you would recommend?
I have one that I like. Please Explain Anxiety to Me. Is by Laurie E. Sillinger, and explain very well to children about anxiety and understand biological and emotional components in the book. It gives a very accurate psychology information in a child-friendly language.
Hmm. Well, I always love plain language. That sounds like a wonderful recommendation. And Amy?
Okay. I have one if you're interested in more on a research side of the house. It's called The Orchid and the Dandelion. It's Why Some Children Struggle and How All Can Thrive. It's by Dr. Thomas Boyce, W. Thomas Boyce. And the theory behind that is, think about an orchid and a dandelion. A dandelion can pretty much grow anywhere under any conditions, very hardy, resilient. But the orchid needs particular situations. And if you supply that, then that orchid is just going to be amazingly beautiful, right? So that is, he does some research on children with troubled lives, and really explains how they both are an important part of society and how they can thrive. It's very interesting.
What a beautiful metaphor. That will stick with me for a while, I think. Okay, so what gives you hope?
Helping others give me hope. How others thrives from different situations, it gives me hope.
I think that now that I am a parent of young adults, I am really hopeful because I said earlier that it's exciting to see that mental health is now being thought of as part of health, which it is, right? It really bothers me when we feel like we have to carve it out, mental health is the same as physical health. So I think when the younger generation, it gives me hope that, they're more open to talking about therapy appointments or struggles with anxiety or dark thoughts, even support groups. And so I think we have a lot to learn from them. So I'm looking forward to watching how that develops.
Mm-hmm. Your comment reminds me, Amy, of a time when I saw two little girls. And they were sort of chatting and disagreeing a tiny bit. And one of them said to the other one, "You have issues." And and it struck me as It was a pretty sophisticated thing to say. She was maybe in first grade, and I thought at that level, that wasn't in my grab bag of insults. That was definitely a higher level.
That probably came from a parent.
Yeah. Yeah, good guess. But I do think young ones are thinking and processing differently on the topic of emotions and mental health than they have in the past. And that does give me hope as well. And helping others, Lucy, that's always a good bet. They say it releases endorphins and gives you the same kind of high as exercise or meditation. So always a good go-to. And other people like it as well. So we have reached our halfway point just about. We are going to move on to our video of the week. First, I want to give a big shout out to Gail Pruitt, a psychiatric nurse, and our assistant here in the office, who is helping out with the chat box, and our beautiful, wonderful intern, Eddie Simmons, who is on tech support as always. And of course, thank you to our guests, Amy Robertson and Lucy Cifre. Now we're going to check out this video. It's my story and I'm sticking to it. I absolutely love Zoom, but I don't always find it easy to share the screen that I hoped I could. All right, talk amongst yourselves for just a quick moment.
Can you hear my dog snoring?
I can't, but I would love that. All right. I'm getting very close to. My dog doesn't snore. She makes sort of these little sigh noises. It's really cute. Okay, so our video this week features NAMI Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ken Duckworth. He's certified in both adult and child adolescent psychiatry. He's been a guiding force for many years. And I like this video because it covers some very basic questions about children's mental health.
Great question that people want to know is my child just having a rough week, a rough time? And they might very well be. And it's difficult to know with precision when a child's going through a phase. But this is why you need to get a good evaluation. Look at the child's strengths, their behaviors, their difficulties, and to get a very clear understanding of what symptoms the child is suffering from. If, for instance, the child is repeatedly washing their hands and repeatedly counting how many pencils they have in their school desk, they may actually be suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder. It's also possible that under stress, they're just becoming a little obsessive as a strategy to manage anxiety. So you really have to talk to somebody who's done some work in this area and assessed many kids to put this child's difficulties into some perspective. I always encourage parents to follow their gut. If they can feel that their child is in some real distress or their behavior is demonstrating something that is unsettling or scary, or if they're really worried about being with them or worried about their own safety, that they should follow their instincts. And I encourage people to get an assessment, talk to someone who is a professional. And the professional won't simply diagnose them. The professional will look at their strengths, their capacities, their deficits, what stresses they're under. Is the family going through a change? Have they recently moved? A different classroom? Is the child being bullied? Does the child have a medical problem they're having difficulty attending to? These stresses all can play into why behaviors can be difficult. But I really encourage parents to follow their instincts because they know their child best.
Great.
Okay, I really appreciate that video in particular, because so often we think of mental illness as an adult topic, and I just liked how he broke it down specifically for children. I thought it was appropriate and kind of validating to this topic. So now it is time to answer questions from our virtual studio audience. I see we have 8 queued up in our Q&A box, which is excellent. I have a feeling we'll be here for a while, and that's a wonderful thing. If you're new to Zoom and you're not sure where to find the Q&A box, it's on the bottom of your monitor slightly to the left, next to some little talk bubbles. So type your question in, it will magically come to us. All right, first question, how do you encourage your family members to continue practicing communication growth?
Well, I know that it's modeling it. You know, you just have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and it starts to happen. Not always, but reframing. You know, this came up in our class the other night. You know, that's not always going to be your first instinct, is to communicate effectively. And so if you let something out of your mouth and it kind of spews forth, then it's okay to say to whoever you're talking to, oops, that I didn't mean to phrase it that way. Let me back up and start back over. Right. And I think when you do stuff like that, it shows anybody around you that it's okay to make a little bit of a mistake, apologize, and then try to correct it. The next time might be easier. I don't know.
Sure. Did you want to add to that, Lucy?
I think she covered pretty much. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like the idea of sort of role modeling it and just back to the practice.
Correct.
Okay, next question. Where can we find resources for college freshmen about communication skills in a new environment that may cause anxiety to come up?
I know most schools, they have health centers that can offer counseling services for freshmen. Also, the school, they have psychology and behavior science department. They have also medical hospitals, affiliated hospitals. And again, the counselor will be my first choice at the university or the college they're going to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Lucy. I think many times we overlook the fact that universities and colleges are little communities, and they mimic what you can find in the community where you live and work. So frequenting that, and you know, they have support groups there just like they have therapists and counselors. What might be tough is, you know, getting as many appointments as you'd like, but it's a great start. And then perhaps reaching out to a referral.
Mm-hmm. Right. I see a comment in the chat box from Diane Crisanda, one of our affiliate leaders. Don't forget NAMI on campus. Yes. And we do have a good half dozen NAMIs on campus. Some of them have support groups, some of them have classes. But of course, if you need clinical care or immediate care, I think those health centers are always available. So how is basics class different from family to family? I'd be happy to answer this unless you all would prefer to. Okay. So as director of programs, this falls under my bailiwick. Basics class is geared specifically to parents and caregivers of folks, of children who are showing mental health symptoms before the age of 22 or before the age of 13 up until the age of 22. And so it looks at individual education programs, how should the parent relate to the school, and what happens when the child turns 18 and suddenly, because of privacy laws, they're not getting any information or feedback on the care that they're still paying for. So it's a real different set of challenges for those parents. Family to family is for friends and loved ones of anyone with a mental illness. And it looks at different diagnoses. What does mental illness look like? And again, that ripple effect of the whole family. If I have a child who is happy and successful in high school, they're playing football, they have a lot of friends, then suddenly things go sideways. The child isn't eating, not leaving the room, the friends aren't coming around anymore. It's not just my son who's upset. The whole family is kind of going sideways and wondering, what did I do? What needs to change? And then of course we look at coping skills, those communication tips, and how the family can cope and recover. So same sort of material, but a different perspective, different situation that you're facing that in. All right, do you have examples of how parents can share with kids about their stress, apprehension about COVID-19 in school? How do we get past the sleep all the time with depression and get to a routine when everyone, including the parents and students, are challenged?
Kids Health, that website, they have videos for kids that talk about the science behind the coronavirus and also kind of like anxiety and how to manage it. I know in our school, we were giving out students um, pamphlet just explaining very simple with some kind of work they could color about the coronavirus and very simple on how to explain it. The main thing is just hygiene, teach them how to wash their hands and keep their distance. But that website, it has a lot of good information about that, explaining that.
And could you repeat the website, Lucy?
Kids Health. I was trying to see if I could put it in the comments. Sorry.
Okay, kidshealth.com or .org.
Yes, I was trying to put it in the comments, but it didn't work for me. But it's kidshealth.org.
Kidshealth.org. Okay, I'm sure Gail or Eddie will be typing that in shortly. There it is, kidshealth.org. Thank you, Gail. Okay. Wow, Lucy answered a question before I had an opportunity to ask.
That was good.
Well done. How can children get help if they are cyberbullied?
Well, I think, so I would go back to being able to have a trusted adult to be able to speak with about this and process their feelings. I don't, I kind of put all of the bullying in one big bucket when I was referencing bullying earlier. And I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it's called the Social Institute, is a not-for-profit group that promotes healthy use of social media. They might have some really great resources from a cyberbullying perspective, and I know they do a lot of work with local schools around here. But I think you just have to have that enter into some sort of trusting relationship where you can have a little bit of a vulnerable discussion with the child or teen and just start probing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Any follow-up, Lucy? That
I
covered a lot.
agree with that. Again, just asking those questions, and if you see any different behavior, even if it's cyberbullying, it's still bullying, and the same behaviors are going to be there. So just look for those behaviors and spend a little extra time just trying to find out what's going on. Just think, oh, he just being a teenager, or just in the room all the time and not saying anything. Just try to investigate a little more and just give them that support, that letting them know I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that, your child may not want to talk to you about this. They may want to talk to someone independently. So, being able to say, using your I statements, right? I get worried when I see you sleep all day. Is there anything going on that I can help you with? We can talk about. If you're not comfortable with me, would you like to find someone for me to help you find someone to speak with, a professional? And that may work. I know that my daughter values her therapist, and I value that because she's been a tremendous help to her.
Mm-hmm. Excellent example of an I statement, a neutral description of the behavior when you sleep all day, and then how do you feel? I feel worried. So virtual studio audience, if you're wondering what is an I statement, there was a great example of one. And that draws attention to the behavior without pointing a finger or putting anyone on the defensive. Yeah. So the next question is, to me, is there a NAMI basics available in Chinese, or are there online Chinese support groups, either locally or in the DC area? I will investigate that. I know there's a contingent of folks in China who have attended NAMI national conventions and explored relationships. I will learn about the back and forth and exactly what's available. So let's follow up by email. And thank you for that question. Okay, and a comment from Diane. Dr. Terry Ledford also has written books and modules. Okay, a lot of good information coming through in the Q&A and the chat box. If there are any more questions, please type them in. Right now, we've gone through those 8 questions pretty quickly. Let's see. Did you ever hear of I See Hope, Don't Duck Mental Health? That's a chat box question.
I have not.
I haven't.
I See Hope, Don't Duck Mental Health. There's got to be a duck on the book of that cover, though. There just has to be one. I'm panning up to the top of the chat box because there was a question earlier.
I answered one. It was about a book, the book that I recommended, which it was Please Explain Anxiety to Me by Lori E. Selinger.
Okay. Okay, very good. Please explain anxiety to me. And that was the one that's written in language that's very easy for children to understand, correct?
Correct.
All right. So since we gave such a wonderful example of an I statement, is there another skill or way of communicating that we could give an example of? Like validation or reflective listening, because those do so much to de-escalate a situation.
I would say praising, because sometimes we just look at pointing the fingers, and sometimes we forget on how to say, hey, you did a good job doing that, or thank you for picking up the garbage without me telling you. Those are words of encouragement. You're validating their feelings and what they're doing. To them is something big, because especially if they don't like to take out the garbage and all of a sudden they come and do it, just thank them, remind them that it means a lot to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we can give a couple of examples. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Can you hear us? You sound good.
Okay, I thought I was. Okay, we can give an example of reflective listening. Let's say your child is angry with you, you know, and this happens, they say, I hate you. I don't want to speak with you. And instead of saying, why? Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? You'd say something like, I can feel you're upset and angry with me right now, right? So you're rephrasing it. So, I can't believe you won't let me go out tonight. Cindy always gets to go out, you know, and the reflective is, it sounds like you're upset that Cindy, that you don't get to go out tonight, right? Or, you know, and it's not the beginning and the end of a conversation, it's the middle, right? And so it just is there's listening to speak, there's listening to hear, and then there's listening for feeling. And what you're trying to do with reflective response is listen with feeling. So listen to that feeling and be able to give it back.
Right. Those were great examples. Those sound like they were pulled right from the class, actually.
Could be.
And what's so important about the emotional piece is that the more you talk around it and fail to acknowledge it, the more it will grow and the more upset the person becomes. But when you can acknowledge it and say, But you sound really upset about that. I can tell you have really strong feelings about it. That will diffuse it. It's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
The key is just remaining calm, because most of the time we feel personally threatened or, attacked. And so we go into that fight or flight or freeze mode, right? Being able to calmly reflect is a really hard skill, but once you practice it, it gets easier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we do have a couple more questions in the Q&A box. PADS, or psychiatric advance directives, and getting a HIPAA signature. HIPAA, of course, is the Health Insurance Privacy and Portability Act. What are college recommendations? So if I'm sending someone off to school, should I think about PADS and HIPAA?
Well, I would. I mean, I just had to deal with this with my daughter, at least from, HIPAA perspective. So that's privacy. So, our daughter, before she left, I mean, we had a discussion with her, actually around her 18th birthday that was recent. And we just said, we'd like to continue to help you navigate your mental health, since you're going to be going away and experiencing so much change. Are you open to giving us authorization, or giving your physicians or therapists authorization to speak with us about your course of treatment? Not all kids are going to do that, though. So she was welcome to that. But I think that was because we have had a really, we've been in family therapy since she was 12, and she's 18 now. So I would pursue that for sure. I think the psychiatric advance directive is a must-have, especially if you are in and out of hospitals, treatment centers, urgent cares, emergency rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Right. And just some basic facts. HIPAA prevents any kind of clinician from sharing information about their client with anybody else without permission, explicit permission. So it's Health Insurance Privacy and Portability Act. Your doctor cannot talk to anybody else without your permission. And PADs, Psychiatric Advance Directives, are a document that allows the person to specify, if I start to feel really ill, this is what I want to happen. I can handle these medications. I cannot handle that medication. I want these visitors, not this other visitor. Lucy, were you going to say something? I didn't mean to jump in.
No, ma'am, no.
Okay. Okay. So
can I add something to that? Because there's a middle ground as well. So with my situation, we do not need the pad for my daughter. But what we do need for our daughter is more of a crisis preparation plan, right? So to be able to discuss openly with her roommate about, if she starts exhibiting these symptoms, here's what you do, or keeping a list of, here's the medication she's on, so that so you can do an informal accounting, crisis preparation plan that may seem more middle ground, especially with young adults that might not need intensive inpatient treatment.
would that middle ground include a WRAP? That stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. It's a little less formal than a PAD. I don't know that it's a legal document.
That's exactly I didn't use the words, but exactly.
Okay. And if you want to Google WRAP, virtual studio audience members, WRAP for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. That's very similar to a PAD.
Yep.
Okay, and thank you, Gail, for putting all that in our chat box. The next question has to do with disability. What help can NAMI offer with when to apply for disability for an adolescent with mental illness? That goes from challenges to functioning very well. Could be for months or nearly every year or so. So mental illness ebbs and flows. This person is sometimes doing well, sometimes not doing well. It sounds like you want to help them prepare for adulthood by possibly getting the application process started for disability income. Not my area of expertise. Does anybody have a thought on that?
It's definitely not my area of expertise. When we go into that topic, which is typically class 5, I usually invite one of my fellow basics teachers in as a special guest to talk a little bit more, because she's done this with both of her boys. The Social Security Administration can be very helpful, for one, because that's where you would apply for disability, for SSI, if I'm correct on that.
Correct.
I would love to follow up on that after the class, for sure, to give more information about that. I just want to go make sure, check my notes and make sure I'm giving good information.
Okay, so the question was anonymous. If you'd like to email us at mail@naminc.org or email me personally, pmorrison@naminc.org, we can try to get some information for you. And thank you for that question. Lucy, did you want to add anything?
I would say the same thing as you were saying at the beginning. If they think that that's going to be an ongoing issue, they should start the disability paperwork as soon as possible. Social services too. If you speak to someone in social service, that will be able to direct you the right way, or they sometimes can help complete those forms for you.
Mm-hmm. I would also say congratulations on getting started with that sooner rather than later. As Lucy said, it's not something you want to wait on, because from everything I do know, everyone I have spoken with, it's a process that takes years. And I know many people who are turned down and turned down and turned down, and they keep appealing, and then finally they get a back payment dating to the first time they submitted the application up to however long it took them to get approved. But for a long time, there is no income in the middle there.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, virtual studio audience, I'm going to start to thank the people on my list of people to thank. So if you have a last minute question, please type it in real quick. We can go as long as 8:30, but if the energy, if we answer all of your questions and everything feels like we're coming to a close, then we're happy to end a little bit early. So of course, thank you so very much to Lucy Cifre and Amy Robertson for coming on tonight and talking about basics and all of your information that will help parents of kids who have mental health challenges. And thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you everyone for participating as well.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, and again, my thanks to Gail and Eddie, our behind the scenes workers who are spending their Thursday evening with us in an attempt to make the show flow smoothly. Quick shout out for our upcoming programs. We've got some more exciting speakers for you. On August 13th, Shireen Caraco, founder of the Promise Resource Network, will be telling us about the recovery movement in North Carolina. Mental illness is a civil rights movement, and she's one of the key players. On the 20th of August, we've got NAMI South Mountains talking about emotional support animals and how they're linking folks with mental illness to emotional support dogs. I have one myself who's near and dear to my heart. And on the 27th, my friend Larry Wanucha, very talented artist, kind of a beautiful mind type of person, is going to be talking about his experience living with schizophrenia. And on the 3rd of September, we've got Mark Salzer of Temple University, along with our own Michaela Cardona, talking about community inclusion, a wonderful program that opens up safe spaces in communities so that folks with mental illness can have a role to play in the community, have things to do in companionship, just like everyone else. All right. So another 90 minutes has flown by. I want to encourage everyone in the week ahead. Please be safe. Please social distance. Take care of yourself and others. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peg. Thanks, Lucy. Call me if you need me.
Thank you, Amy. Definitely I will.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.